Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing an extended video. In this one, we're going to be go through and explaining, taking a look at the Walking Dead television series timeline all the way through the series from the very beginning, Season 1, Episode 1, up to our current point, Season 7's mid-season finale, Heart Still Beating, that's Episode 8. This one's going to be our Christmas special video for this year, an extended one for you guys. Happy holidays, guys, and I hope you like it. In the beginning, oh man, it's crazy to think it's been 7 years since this episode. But to start things off, of course, we had the premiere episode for The Walking Dead, which is Season 1, Episode 1, our pilot episode, Days Gone By. So, of course, at this time, we had Rick, who was asleep in his coma, sawing off logs. We had Shane, Lori, and Carl, who were off close to Atlanta there with the camp or on their way to it. Day 0 is where we start. This is the global outbreak that was shown in a flashback sequence in the episode Wildfire. So from day 0 to day 59, Rick is actually asleep in the coma. So the first 2 months roughly of the zombie apocalypse, of the ZA, Rick is still asleep. So the first couple episodes of Season 1 take place over a couple days. We start with day 59 with Rick waking up at the hospital. He, of course, meets with Morgan and Dwayne, finds out about the zombie apocalypse, finds out about everything that's been happening, and he heads off on his mission to Atlanta. There, of course, he runs into Glenn and the others. We have the incident with Merle on the rooftop, and then Rick finally makes it to camp and meets Lori and Carl again, who of course have just figured out and realized that he is still alive. Day 61, the camp is attacked. We have, of course, Amy and Andrea. Some big scenes here as Amy is bitten by a pretty fun Greg Nicotero zombie and of course dies, and Andrea puts her down after she is reanimated on day 62. They then make the announcement they're going to head towards the CDC on day 62, and they do so. Morales leaves with his family. Day 63, we actually do arrive at the CDC, and we meet Dr. Jenner. The group spends 2 days at the CDC, and on day 64, we have our first season finale, Season 1, Episode 6. And the group is able to escape the CDC when Jenner decides that opting out is the best course of action, commits suicide, and blows the whole damn place up. We continue without a time skip between Season 1 and Season 2, but we do have a couple sequences that were taken out and deleted. There is one where the group goes to check on the Vatos, and we briefly see this in a deleted scene with Shane as he's running. Unfortunately, didn't make it to the final cut of the show, so that was kind of taken out. So that accounts for day 65 roughly. Day 66 is when we begin with Season 2 and what lies ahead. Rick makes his transmission to Morgan, and we have the part in what lies ahead where the group basically gets separated. You have Sophia, who kind of runs off when we have the small zombie herd that passes our group on the road, the highway there, with all the cars around, the RV zombie, and all the awesomeness that happens in the Season 2 premiere. Day 67, we have the group who keeps looking for Sophia. Unfortunately, isn't able to find her, but someone does. She is bitten after being separated, turns into a walker, and then Otis finds her and brings her into the zombie barn that they have on the green farm. This is also the same day as when Carl gets shot, and they end up going to the green farm and meeting Herschel for the first time. This one is quite the busy day, as when it gets dark, you have Shane and Otis who go out to get the supplies that are needed to help Carl in Episode 2 of Season 2, which is bloodletting. Day 68, Shane returns with the supplies that are needed. We have Carl, who is injured. Then we have Glenn and Maggie, who head out on their own, where we have Glenn, who gets a pregnancy test for Lori. Day 69, Glenn stumbles upon the walkers in the barn. Day 71, Shane loses his head, gives everyone their guns back, and we see the events of Pretty Much Dead already. Find out that Sophia was in the barn, she stumbles out, and Rick puts her down. This one turns out to be a really busy day, as after the events of Pretty Much Dead already, we see Herschel go to a local bar. He's followed by Rick and Glenn. Then they encounter a group made up of several guys, 2 of which are named Dave and Tony, where Rick ends up actually having to kill them in the bar. Afterwards, a gunfight ensues, and they end up saving a kid named Randall, who they take back to the farm with them. Day 80, we see the events of 18 miles out, where we have Rick and Shane that go to drop off Randall at a nearby public works station. Of course, you guys will remember this one. They get into the infamous fight there, and both end up leaving alive with Randall still with them. And we see him afterwards the next day, day 81, being brutally interrogated by Daryl. Day 81 includes the events of judge, jury, executioner. We have the group arguing over what to do with Randall. Dale makes the case that they should let the boy live, and later on that night is gutted by a walker, and Daryl puts him down, put him out of his misery. Day 82, we have a funeral that is held for Dale. Rick decides that the best way to go is to follow Dale's way and allow the boy to live, allow Randall to live. Shane disagrees, leads Randall out into the woods, and eventually breaks his neck, killing him. Afterwards, we see the events of Better Angels, where we have actually one of the most climactic parts in the whole series, I'd have to say. And we have Rick, who kills his best friend, kills Shane for the group. We've got some gunfire that goes off with Carl and Zombie Shane. And then we have a herd of walkers that hear it nearby and start to migrate towards the farm. Day 83 ends up being the last day for The Walking Dead Season 2. The herd comes through and basically cleans the farm out. Everybody has to leave. We've got Beside the Dying Fire as the barn is lit on fire to kill many of the walkers. We've got Herschel with his unlimited ammo shotgun hack. And we've got the group in total disarray. Interesting to this one that the season ends about where it started off. The group goes back to the highway, the freeway, where they initially were separated, and we had Sophia go missing. It kind of circles back, from the beginning of the season until the end. They kind of end up in the same place, really, that they started. Now we got a pretty big time skip. We go from day 83 all the way to day 300 between the end of The Walking Dead Season 2 and the start of The Walking Dead Season 3. We know that winter passes. As T-Dog said, they've been going around in circles all winter, as he pointed out, and they had spent some time, apparently, in the skip that we didn't see, in some storage lockers during the winter to stay warm, living there. Noah, at this time, was actually kidnapped and brought to Grady Memorial Hospital. We had Tyrese's group as well, including Sasha and the others that were attacked during this time frame and had to leave. And then we had Andrea and Michonne, who spent the entire winter surviving together. For the Season 3 premiere, we're at days 300 to 302. We see the group that has been surviving on very little, scavenging around, finding what they can, kind of dissatisfied with how things are going for them. It's springtime now. They end up finding the prison on day 300, and they storm it. They basically take it over, and on day 302, they run into the prisoners. Also on day 302, we have the encounter with the prisoners where Thomas and Rick kind of go at it a bit, and Rick ends up killing Thomas. Day 303, we have Michonne and Andrea who run into Merle and then the governor and are taken to Woodbury. Day 309, we have the events of Killer Within as Andrew causes all kinds of freaking chaos at the prison when the group finds out that he is still alive and was not actually killed earlier by the walkers that he was trapped with. We have T-Dog who's bitten. T-Dog killed. Carol kind of goes missing. We have the birth of Judith and the death of Lori. Day 310, we have the events of Hounded as you have Michonne who leaves Woodbury. Merle goes after her. Merle runs into Glenn and Maggie and ends up capturing them and bringing them back to Woodbury. Also, this is the first meeting between Michonne and Rick, as Michonne decides to go to the prison anyway with the baby formula, and Rick and the others take her in as one of their own. Also that night, we have the events of Made to Suffer, the mid-season finale for The Walking Dead Season 3. where we have Rick and the others that go after Maggie and Glenn, are able to rescue them. However, Daryl is kind of captured behind with Merle. Then we have Rick and Maggie who actually go back for them and help them escape as well. They all basically get away at this point. Day 311, the next day, the group returns to the prison and meets Tyrese's group for the very first time. So we have the meeting between Rick and Tyrese that does not go well, as Rick is not in a good state of mind, who decides to not allow them to join and ask them to leave, which they do. Days 313, 314, we have Andrea who goes to visit her old group at the prison, decides not to stay, and then we have Rick, Carl, and Michonne who go to visit Morgan in order to get some supplies for the oncoming battle. 317, Rick meets with the governor during the events of Arrow on the Doorpost, and they are not able to agree to terms. Day 319, we have the final episode for Merle as he attacks the governor and the Woodbury group at a rendezvous point they had set up earlier on when they were discussing the possibility of handing over Michonne. Following that, 320 to 321, we have the Season 3 finale. So we have the governor attacking the prison, failing, killing a whole bunch of his own people from Woodbury. We have Rick and the group retaliating, going back. End up actually saving some people, joining forces with Tyrese, and taking back everybody who's surviving from Woodbury to live with them at the prison. Now we have the time skip that occurs from the end of The Walking Dead Season 3 and the finale into the premiere for The Walking Dead Season 4. So this one does complete our first year cycle of the zombie apocalypse. We go from day 320 to approximately day 500. So the group has now survived an entire year in the zombie apocalypse. This also includes the time where Enid first comes across the Alexandria safe zone, and also the events of Here's Not Here, which are shown with Morgan later on. That time skip comes back to this time frame when he meets Eastman, and he changes, kind of comes back a bit, and learns to care for others once again. So we start Season 4 over 500 days into the zombie apocalypse with 30 days without an accident, where at this time they actually did go an entire month without anybody getting hurt, without any accidents at the prison. So they actually, for a little while there, things were going pretty well at the prison. Then we have the events of the big spot, where of course we have Zach who's killed, and all kinds of other craziness happening. Bungie got zombies and all kinds of fun stuff. And then we have Patrick who gets ill from the illness at the prison in the events of Infected, and starts a kind of internal outbreak of walkers or zombies at the new prison group. Day 501, the continuation of Patrick turning into a zombie, biting others during the night. We have a bit of a zombie outbreak there, but it is contained. The group is able to kill them off. Then we have the spread of the infection. We find out that others are sick as well. We have Carol who kills both Karen and David, and the group digs a whole bunch of graves for all of the new dead. Day 502, Rick is investigating the murders, trying to find out who killed Karen and David. Then we have Daryl and a small group that go out on a run, driving towards a nearby hospital, when we hear our first mention of Terminus, Sanctuary, survive, and then they run into the impressive zombie herd. Around this time, Rick also has Carol leave the prison because he finds out that she's responsible for the deaths of both Karen and David. We have the group that went on a run starting to head back, and we have Herschel that gets a time to shine with internment as he's helping all of the sick due to the spreading infection. Day 504, we have the events of Too Far Gone. The governor takes both Herschel and Michonne captive, and with his newfound militia attacks the prison in what is one of the highlights of the series. I want to say definitely a few busy days, that's for sure. Days 505 to 507, we are seeing the aftermath of the attack on the prison by the governor. Our group, of course, has to leave the prison because it is just totally destroyed. You have, small little groups of our greater group headed in all kinds of different directions. After a couple days, we have Michonne being reunited with Rick and Carl in the events of After. And we also have at this point Daryl and Beth, where Beth actually gets separated from him and then kind of abducted and taken to Grady Memorial Hospital. 508 and 509, we have the continuation of our mini subgroups. You have Daryl all by himself now, who runs into Joe's group, the Claimers, and ends up joining them sort of out of necessity, not really having much of a choice. We have Beth, who wakes up at the Grady Memorial Hospital. And we also have the Grove, where we have Lizzie, who kills her sister Mika in, honestly, one of the darkest episodes in the entire series, the Grove. And then we have Carol, who decides it's best to put Lizzie down as she is too far gone. She is beyond repair. 510 and 511, we have the season finale for The Walking Dead Season 4. We have the events of A. A lot of our group is starting to finally reach Terminus now. We have Glenn and Maggie that were reunited just prior. We have Abraham's enlarged group that actually does make it to Terminus first. And then we have Joe and the Claimers with Daryl, who do actually catch up to Rick, Michonne, and Carl, and the battle at the end of A for the season finale for Season 4 occurs. You have the infamous bite on the neck where Rick bites Joe. You have them fight back against the Claimers and defeat them. And then eventually they head towards Terminus as well. At the end of the season, day 511, we have the entire group at Terminus ending up in the train cart together, with the exception of Carol, Tyrese, and baby Judith. The Season 5 premiere with no sanctuary. Also day 511, so no time skip between the end of Season 4 and the start of Season 5. We have the group in the train cart, we have Tyrese and Carol nearby, and we have everything that goes down in No Sanctuary. Carol saves everybody, they're able to escape. Some of the termites, or Gareth and the cannibals, the hunters, are still alive, but we do see the group kind of get away and are triumphant in this pretty amazing premiere, probably the best premiere The Walking Dead has ever had, and it's also the highest rated episode of The Walking Dead ever. So this is the peak point in The Walking Dead series. Season 5, beginning of Season 5, it's like, this is when it starts getting really good. 512, we meet Father Gabriel. Very cool. So after Terminus in Strangers, we meet Father Gabriel for the first time. The group, of course, does not trust him because his whole story and everything just seems so kind of ridiculous. We also have Gareth and the hunters that have gone after our group and captured Bob. So there was almost no time skip in between. After the group left Terminus on 511, the very next day, 512, Gareth and the hunters went after them and did actually capture Bob. We have the tainted meat part, and then the hunters actually returned Bob that night to our four walls and a roof to the church. This is actually also the same day where the hunters are actually killed off. So later on that night, after all of this happened, Rick and the group leave to go and look for them, which is actually kind of a setup. They kind of circle back and are able to take out the hunters and kill them. Also day 512. Then we have 513, where we have Carol and Daryl that are kind of out in Consume, so they're not there at this time. They're off, of course, looking for Beth as they saw the car drive through. And we meet Noah. We see the events that take place in a slab town flashback. The very next day, day 514, we have the group that goes into Atlanta to the Grady Memorial Hospital. Pretty exciting mid-season finale, which is Coda, including also Crossed. And we basically have the trade that is made between our groups. Rick and our survivors are able to take both Carol and Beth. However, Dawn throws a curveball in there and wants to save face in front of her own people and ask for Noah. Beth refuses, stabs her with a pair of scissors that we saw in Coda, and is shot and killed as part of the process in the mix. Now we have a little bit of a time skip, which is a couple weeks. We go from day 514 to day 530, and we have the group that travels from Atlanta, Georgia to Richmond, Virginia for Noah. Also during this particular time skip is when we have Morgan who leaves Eastman's in search of others. He follows a Terminus sign and eventually finds out about Rick still being alive, which changes his course, changes his direction to find him. 5:31. Now we're into the second half of The Walking Dead Season 5. We see the Shirewilt community, Noah's old kind of hometown, home community, and in the process we lose Tyrese. Very sad episode. What happened and what's going on? And then they hold a funeral for him that day. Between days 5:32 and 5:37, the group is about 60 miles away from Washington. They're on their way, they're traveling there, when they run into a man who introduces himself as Aaron from the Alexandria safe zone. Going into day 538, the group decides to give Aaron a shot, give this Alexandria safe zone a shot. They travel there with the Distance, very cool overnight type of episode, lots of epic zombie sequences and kills and that. Very exciting. On day 538, during the day, they're interviewed by Deanna at the Alexandria safe zone, starting with Rick. Over the next couple of days, the group starts to kind of get settled a little bit at the Alexandria safe zone. We have Rick who gets a haircut, shaves his infamous season 5 beard, sad face, and then we have him meeting Pete as he's sitting on the porch, porch dick, right? It's fun. And we have the events of the episode Remember. 5:41, we have Forget, as we see a party that is hosted by Deanna and the people of Alexandria. Rick's group attends, and everybody seems to have a pretty good time. Over the next couple days, the group continues to kind of assimilate into becoming part of Alexandria. We have also the infamous run, including Aiden and Noah's death, if you guys remember, probably the most brutal death in all The Walking Dead, when Noah gets trapped inside of the revolving doors with Glenn, the others, and a whole whackload of zombies as he gets absolutely torn to shreds. Brutal, man. 5:46, we continue with the Alexandria storyline with the wolves kind of in and around seeing zombies with W's carved into their heads. And this is the part where we have Rick and Pete with the argument over Jesse and about Pete hitting Jesse. We get the whole fight that breaks down, Rick pulling out the gun, and then Michonne knocking Rick out unexpectedly near the end. 5:47 is the final day for The Walking Dead Season 5. We have the events of our season finale, Conquer. Pretty impressive episode. A lot of stuff in this one. We have the wolves who have their encounter with Morgan. Morgan allows them to live even though he's defeated them. He doesn't kill them. We have Rick getting into it once more. Pete going after him. Got the sword and everything. Rick putting him down and killing him. And in the end of the season, Morgan showing up to meet face-to-face with Rick once again. Once again this season, we get no time skip between the end of Season 5 and the beginning of The Walking Dead Season 6. We start The Walking Dead Season 6 with First Time again, dealing with the aftermath of Pete's death, the beginning of what's happening with the wolves, and we see Rick and Morgan find out about this quarry when they go to kind of bury Pete, which is absolutely stacked full of over 30,000 zombies. Over the next few days, the group prepares to deal with this huge amount of walkers that they have now found, devise the plan that they're going to reroute them away from the Alexandria safe zone, and the wolves prepare for their attack. Day 552, we have the events of JSS as well as First Time Again happening. Sequentially, we have Rick and the group leading this humongous mega herd away from Alexandria when the wolves attack Alexandria, and a truck horn causes a good portion, or at least a small amount, of the zombie herd to reroute and head direction back to Alexandria. This is one of those crazy busy days because later on in the afternoon we have the events of Thank You, the death of Nicholas, and the kind of fake out death of Glenn, which some people still have a bad taste in their mouth over. Glenn spends the rest of the day hiding underneath the dumpster. But we also have the zombie herd that is now, headed towards Alexandria, is kind of getting close outside of the gates, parts of it kind of getting there within the next day or so. And the kind of finale for the wolves storyline. Except for the alpha wolf, all of the rest of the wolves are killed off, the alpha wolf being captured. A part of the wolves running away from Alexandria, being kind of chased off by Morgan, but then running into Rick and being killed off by Rick near the RV. 553, we meet Dwight for the very first time, and always accountable from the viewpoint of Daryl, as well as Sherry and Tina. Tina, of course, is killed, and Dwight and Sherry sort of seem to be allies with Daryl, but then turn against him again and steal his stuff and take off. We also have around this time the events of the episode Now, and kind of the setup for a pretty huge mid-season finale with start to finish. Still the same day, where the tower collapses, all of the walkers enter Alexandria, and we have the group devise their idea to use the guts trick. We have the death of Deanna, and we have the group start to kind of move through the zombie herd that early evening. Now we're into the second half of The Walking Dead Season 6, which is got to be one of the most exciting parts in all The Walking Dead, coming off of start to finish, day 553 that night. So we have the group realizing in No Way Out that they're not going to be able to sneak out of this one. The guts trick is not going to work. We have the Anderson family massacre, which occurs where you have them basically being killed off by zombies as a result of Sam not being able to control himself and just getting freaked out by the whole mess, drawing attention to them. You have the shot where Carl loses the eye. You have Michonne who kills Ron. Brutal, man. And we have Rick and the others who spend the evening basically fighting off the zombie herd, putting themselves in jeopardy, putting themselves out there, no longer being afraid. Rick going out there and everybody else kind of joining with him, and just one at a time, just killing off one zombie after another, hand-to-hand weapons and everything else they got going on. At the same time, we also had Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha, who ran into the first kind of small group of Negans, and Daryl taking them out with a rocket launcher, heading back that night, of course, and helping out the others with No Way Out by lighting the water on fire with the RPG and a fuel tanker just to create a massive fire, which draws a lot of the zombies into. And pretty much that's it for that day. Quite the busy day. The next day, 554, just dealing with the aftermath, cleaning up all the bodies in the wake of just absolute devastation, destruction, and all the zombies that they had to actually kill down, beat down over the previous crazy, insane day 553. We get a bit of an unsuspected time skip at this point, so we go from day 554 all the way to day 614 as the group just basically cleans up after the events of No Way Out. They repair the wall, they kind of get themselves back together. You have Carl who, starts to heal up, of course, after losing the eye, and things just kind of get back on track over that period of time. Going into 614, we have the next world where we run into Jesus for the first time, which is very cool, Paul Rovia, and kind of a lighter episode there with the next world going into Knots Untied. This is also the time when Rick and Michonne first get together and sleep together, woken up by Jesus, who then over the next couple days introduces them to the Hilltop Colony. We have Ethan, who returns and kind of attacks Gregory, Rick stopping him, and we're basically introduced between our survivors and the Hilltop Colony in terms of them as groups. Afterwards, day 616, we have Rick and our group of survivors in the deal with the Hilltop attacking a savior outpost, a savior base, the satellite station, in a pretty brutal fashion, killing basically everybody there. And unfortunately, as part of it, we have Maggie and Carol, who are captured by a smaller group of saviors. 617 is the same boat as we have Rick and the group that go to rescue Carol and Maggie. Granted, they don't need rescuing because Carol and Maggie are actually able to defeat Paula and the group of saviors that took them. We have a short time skip going to day 626, where we see our last episode for Denise as she goes out with Rosita and Daryl on a short run, and in the process is killed by Dwight. We get kind of a firefight that goes on between them, and Dwight and the Saviors are forced to retreat. Continuing 627, 628, we have the final couple episodes here for The Walking Dead Season 6. In a pretty epic conclusion, we have Carol, who goes off on her own, runs into some Saviors, is able to fight her way past them, stalked by one. Morgan, who of course saves her from certain death, running into members of the Kingdom. With our main group, we have Daryl, who goes and gets himself captured, as well as Rosita and Glenn, and we have Rick and the others who head out because Maggie is feeling very sick and is experiencing a lot of pain trying to get her to the hilltop. As a result, we see the events of Last Day on Earth, where the Saviors end up capturing basically everybody with the exception of Carol and Morgan, and we have the infamous Negan introductory scene. And of course, no time skip here, going from the finale for The Walking Dead Season 6 into the premiere for The Walking Dead Season 7. This is day 628. This is the day will come when you won't be. We see, of course, Rick and the group have to totally surrender and become completely subservient for now to the Saviors. We have the huge double death in the Season 7 premiere with the death of Abraham and the death of Glenn, as well as Negan breaking in Rick, letting him know that if he doesn't do what he's told, if they don't fall in line, that their lives are going to be very, very painful, using Carl as part of that to break Rick in. The next few days afterwards, 629 on through to 631, we get to see some different perspectives in the zombie apocalypse. We get to see Carol and Morgan at the Kingdom. We get to meet Ezekiel for the first time. We get to see the sanctuary from Daryl's perspective, being in a cell for a few days. We get to see what it's like to be Dwight. We have Dwight, who goes out after a Code Orange Savior who leaves. Dwight's able to, I suppose, kind of capture him, kill him in the mix, and bring him back. And then we get into, with 631, 632, the events of Go-Getters, as we have Enid and Carl who head towards the hilltop. This also coincides with what has been happening with Tara, as we see in Swear her get into a little bit with the Oceanside people and eventually leave, head back to Alexandria. 632 is when she arrives to find out the bad news, and pretty much the same day is when we get to see the start of Hearts Still Beating, and of course we have kind of the deaths and everything that occur around the mid-season finale, and Rick eventually, gets back with Aaron, the whole thing with Aaron getting beaten up and Rick finding Negan and seeing what has happened. So that leaves us at our current spot for the Walking Dead television series at the mid-season finale, day 633. We have the group reunited again at the hilltop and pretty much coming to the decision that they're going to have to fight back against Negan and the Saviors. They have absolutely no choice. They have to. So day 633 is where we end off. That's where we start also with the second half of the Walking Dead Season 7. It looks like we're not going to be seeing any kind of a time skip, or if we do see one, it would be very, very small. So that brings us up to our current point for the Walking Dead television series. There is the explanation of the timeline for you guys in TV series time. I'll put the link in the description to the wikia for the timeline so you guys can check it out. It's based on information that's been released about the show, and anything regarding interviews or info or anything that's been released is where it's drawn from. Now, are there some issues with the timeline? Of course there are. You have characters like, for example, Carl, who from the beginning of the series is just a kid, and at this time, 7 years later in real world time, 7 seasons in, he's grown so much. You have baby Judith, for example, that if she's like a year or so, it's kind of tough to look at. I mean, you have to kind of look at the baby, look at and see how long it's been and everything, and does it make sense? So there's definitely some inconsistencies with the TV series with regards to time. You also have the weather changing at certain parts. You could have the group changing their attire. So sometimes they'll be wearing like warmer jackets. Sometimes it'll seem more like it's the summertime. Sometimes it'll look like it's fall near the end of a season when they're finishing filming. But that may not necessarily mean that it is fall in the TV series because there's no time skip going into the next season. So really when you look at it, it's like, there's certain time skips in The Walking Dead. But in terms of the seasons and the episodes that we see, overall, I guess you could say there's not a lot of time that passes between the episodes. When they get busy in the zombie apocalypse, a lot of things can happen in one day, such as the case with No Way Out. And it can be very, very packed when all kinds of craziness is happening over a couple days. But if you think about it, that's what life would probably be like in a zombie apocalypse. You might have certain times where there are 30 days without an accident, 30 days of peace and everything's okay, and then you might run into another group or something that might be evil, and then all of a sudden all of this crazy shit is happening, characters are getting killed, people are dying left, right, and center in just a couple days or something. So feel free to write your complaints with it below, guys. It's kind of crazy to think 7 years real world time. It's only been about 1.7 years, not even 2 full years into the zombie apocalypse, and all this craziness has happened to our group. They've been through so much in not even 2 years. It's absolutely crazy. So that's a Christmas special for this year, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it to be a good extended video. Lots of fun to discuss the time frame and how these things are playing out in the Walking Dead universe itself. And if you like this video, please don't forget, guys, this one took a long time to make, so please thumb it up below. You can also share, you can favorite, and if you're new and you want to subscribe to the channel, you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe, bottom left. Check out these other videos here, guys. You want to watch another one? Have a happy holidays, guys, to you and all your families. Merry Christmas. That's it for this one, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. As always, it's Trev, and I'm saying peace. See you guys.